Ohio State, they got their spring game on the Big Ten Network, noon Eastern, on Saturday. We're all watching the quarterback battle, right? All of us. It's Julian Sayin, Lincoln Kienholz, Tavien St. Clair. Maybe you sprinkle him into the equation a little bit, but I think we all understand it's probably going to be a two-horse race until further notice. The quarterback battle at Ohio State, the way you assess it, for my money, is kind of like how you assess catering for your wedding or a party. A lot of these different catering places, they have like a set menu. And so what you're trying to do is to figure out, hey, we like this entree. We don't love this side. So is it worth taking the entree if we don't love the side? We love the steak. Potatoes, could take it or leave it. Lincoln Kienholz. How much are we sacrificing with him as a passer? We love the mobility and what he can do as a playmaker, but do we want to put him in as our starting quarterback because we still got to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, all that and the other? I'm assessing that in the spring game. How does he look as a passer? I don't know what Ohio State's going to do when it comes to making quarterbacks live or not live. In a previous practice, they made quarterbacks live. I'd be very surprised if that was the case in the spring game. But the same conversation can be said for Julian Sayin. Dude's got a rocket launcher for an arm. Well, what is he from a mobility standpoint? Does he leave a little bit to be desired there? And how much of a setback is that if you're trying to go repeat as a national champion in Columbus? Something to watch for. But to me, a lot of this, when you talk about Ohio State, it's not just can you run the offense. I want to see the wow plays. We got time to get everything together and to have the offense be a little more cohesive when we get to fall camp. I want to see the wow plays from both those cats when they light it up here this upcoming Saturday. Now, the wide receiver room, nobody's questioning what they have there. Sure, you lose Emeka Egbuka, but this is kind of the next evolution of this wide receiver room. Brian Hartline now going to be the play caller for you. So you would think, hey, coach, you coach a certain position. You're not calling plays. We're maybe going to feed that position a little bit more than we already were. Food for thought. I just want some sweet propaganda, man. Is that too much to ask for? Like, I don't question if Carnell Tate's going to be a dude. I just want to see it a little bit in the spring game. I don't question Brandon Ennis, Smiling Graham, who's, I'll just say this, wearing a similar jersey number, similar movements to a one Garrett Wilson. I'll just leave it at that. These dudes could have all gone anywhere out of high school. All of them will be NFL players. I would just love to see, like I said, some propaganda, something to get excited about, some flash plays, some splash plays, because honestly now you do lose 2,000 yards of rushing in that backfield. It's not me questioning what you have in that backfield here in 2025, but I would say if there was ever a situation where you're going to have to lean a little bit more on your receiving core, now might be the time. Now, if you didn't follow the recruiting rankings, you would think Ohio State was just manufacturing these dudes in a lab in Columbus. The five-star freshman we're going to get a chance to see here, I am following that very closely. Speaking of receivers, five-star receiver, 6'4", Quincy Porter was the first freshman of the group, the entire freshman group, that is, to lose a black stripe. That's saying something because of how highly they've talked about a one Devin Sanchez. Now, I don't know how much Quincy Porter will or won't play in 2025. I think we'll get a gauge for maybe where he stands right now on the depth chart based on who he's rolling with during the spring game. I just want to see how much he can add to this room. How much can he add to this group? What we say a lot about freshmen in this time of year is, at best, they can help you on Saturdays. At worst, there's some depth. Now, we all know if you're a receiver in the Ohio State room, you're a dude. Quincy Porter, I don't think anyone's questioning if he's a dude. I'm just curious to see how far along is he. In that same vein, Devin Sanchez, who I mentioned a second ago, also a five-star cornerback. He's gotten a ton of buzz this spring. Whenever you talk to folks close to Columbus, he's one of the first names that comes up as a guy that's like he's really popping during spring practice. I want to see how he looks against the best receiver room in the country, because we're all saying he's got a guy that could potentially start for Ohio State. When David St. Ignosin and Jermaine Matthews just exist, and he might start, okay, he must be a dude. I'm going to get a chance to see how much of a dude he really is against Jeremiah Smith and all those guys that I mentioned previously that will eventually be Sunday players. So a really good litmus test for him. How about that, dude? You're a true freshman, show up playing college football, and your first spring game is against the best player in college football in Jeremiah Smith. Talk about iron sharpening iron. Now, Tavien St. Clair, another high-profile player for them, quarterback. Just a little peek at the future. When you talk about what he's going to be at Ohio State, he gets some Justin Fields comps. Now, it's extremely lofty comps for a guy that hasn't played a snap of college football just yet. But if you're getting compared to Justin Fields and you've been on campus for a cup of coffee and still figuring out where you like to eat in Columbus, you have my attention. So I'd love to see a little bit of flash from him. Again, I'd be wildly surprised if he started for Ohio State. I think that's kind of the sentiment across the board. But to have that kind of buzz should be taken note of, is all I'm going to say there. Now, The defense is tricky to evaluate, especially during a spring game, because if it's anything like last year's spring game for Ohio State, there's going to be a quick whistle. It'll be a lot of thud tempo, meaning we're just wrapping guys up, not taking them to the ground, especially against the ones. But it's a new era for Ohio State on the defensive side of the football. Matt Patricia now calling the defense. And this is a bit of an unquantifiable to try and track during a spring game, but I think there's something to it. I think that teams take on the persona of their coach. I think that sides of the football take on the persona of their coordinator. I mean, Brent Venables at Clemson was a great example of this. Dude's a psychopath. Those teams at Clemson, what were they? Relentless, high energy, intense, a lot like Brent Venables. Last year for Ohio State, Jim Knowles running the show. Kind of a cerebral approach, very much so a polished approach. Matt Patricia, what's his defense going to be like? I don't think we get a total answer for that in the spring game, but I want to take a temperature. Big temperature taking for us here on the defense side of the football, across the board, across the country here, when it comes to what we're going to see this Saturday. In addition to that, I want to see how different the one defensive line looks from the two defensive line. Because in the Big Ten, dude, you got to have the big boys up front. It's no secret. That was, quite frankly, what Ohio State had that allowed them to make a run that they went on at the end of last season. The Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, they came alive, and then once they were off the field, there was no real drop-off. CJ Hicks has been moved to edge, been getting great reviews so far out of spring. Obviously, you're not going to hit the quarterback. I like to see a little bit of little club and rip from the guy, a little nice get off on the edge, just something to see, something to make you feel good about what you have on the edge going into fall camp. Now, some predictions for this spring game. That's the fun part about this thing. Not just giving you a preview, going to give you a full-on prediction. Got two of them. One, I think James Peoples, your running back that I expect to kind of be your home run hitter here in 2025. I think he flashes a little bit. I think you see something from him. Not to make you forget Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins, but I think he does some good things. The big storyline coming out, though, when you crack open the Hard Count Herald on Monday morning, you're saying it's a battle. All right? Peep the spelling there. Sayin. You're saying it's a battle. I think Kienholz and Julian Sayin both strut their stuff a little bit, man. I don't think we have a spring game where we leave and say, man, that's definitely Julian Sayin's job. That's definitely Lincoln Kienholz's job. I think as an Ohio State fan, you have this weird back and forth internally of, well, Julian Sayin looked great, but Lincoln Kienholz looked great. Well, we don't know who our quarterback is, but shoot, we got two guys that can spin it, that can move the offense for us. I'm really, really intrigued to see how they look in the spring game, but again, my prediction, I think both guys ball out, and as an Ohio State fan, you're like, great, champagne problems. Let either one of those dudes play. And Cato and I talked about it on a previous show. When you have an intense quarterback battle like Ohio State does in the situation they're coming off of a national championship, you're trying to root out complacency in itself. You're trying to create some urgency for your team. Not that you need urgency if you're at Ohio State, but off a national title, you're trying to continue to turn that intensity volume, that intensity knob up. Having two dudes going back and forth, that's going to raise the intensity level, I think, of the entire team, because you don't want to be the guy that drops that dime from Julian Sayin or misses the block where Lincoln Kienholz could have made a big play downfield and hurts him in the quarterback race. So all in all, I think both guys have a good day. Not super hot takey there for you. We don't apologize for it, but all things considered, the Ohio State spring game will be a movie. We'll be tuned in. We'll give you a reaction afterwards, but excited to hear from y'all and your thoughts on the Ohio State spring game.